This story came in last night, August 19th, 2024. He is from Ocala, Florida. Him and his wife are both the same age. They are 49. He says he and his wife have been married for 21 years. They have one son who lives in another state. He didn't think anything was off with his marriage until his wife started staying really late at work, but no prior pattern of overtime. Well, guys, as I've said in most of my videos, all you have to do is pay attention. Changes in someone's routine can signal an alarm. He said it was weird. Out of the blue, she wasn't calling me, not giving me any kind of notice that she was staying late. But let me back up a bit. My wife works for an office supply company. She is a manager there. We have never had any issues with any part of our marriage that I could see. We talked about everything. Communication didn't seem to be a lacking part of our relationship. We had movie nights, date nights, you name it. Anything to keep our relationship fun and exciting. I always made sure I didn't neglect my wife in any way. We didn't have any issues in the bedroom, but this would change. I never went through her phone or invaded her privacy. I trusted her. But something rather strange occurred when she came home from work one night. It was around 9ish. She usually gets home around 7:30 or 7:45 p.m. When I hugged her, I got a whiff of what seemed like men's cologne. I asked her about it, but she said one of her coworkers had some small samples of men's cologne. She claimed that she wanted to see if there was something she liked from me. But why would it be up around her neck area? Most people either spray some on their wrist or spray a small mist into the air and try to sniff it that way. I'm not sure if that's a red flag, but when I test cologne personally, I usually just spray a small mist and sniff it that way. But I imagine most people use their wrist if they are trying out samples. I didn't buy it. I don't know why, it just didn't seem plausible, but I went along with it not to cause a rift. Fast forward 2 weeks, I get a text from my wife saying she was going to one of her coworkers after work. She said her coworker was thinking about donating some clothes. So my wife tells me she wanted to go try some of these clothes on because her and her coworker are the same size. No big deal, I didn't care. This is on a Friday night. This will be important later. Now, my wife gets off around 7 p.m. She didn't get home until almost 11. I was super suspicious after that. Doesn't take anyone almost 4 hours to try on clothes. If you take almost 4 hours to try on clothes, you must hit almost every clothing store in our city. Yep, something is wrong with that picture. But my wife really didn't think this through. She came home with one pair of leggings. Here is where her story falls apart. A buddy of mine was laid off from his job. He's wealthy, made some money when Bitcoin was on fire, and saved most of the money he made. But he still wanted to have a job. Didn't want to live off his Bitcoin surplus just yet. He wanted to keep funds for his retirement. Well, one day we were on the phone catching up about sports and some current events. But before he got off the phone, he said, "Hey, it's probably none of my business, but one Friday night when I went to work," he is a contractor. He was doing some road work for the city. He told me he saw my wife's car parked at a bar. My wife's car is very distinctive, crazy color blue and custom plates. I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "I am 1000% sure." I didn't say anything to my wife at all about what my buddy said. Remember when I said I never invaded my wife's privacy? Well, the following night when she came home and she fell asleep, I tried to get into her phone. To my surprise, I couldn't get in. She has an iPhone, so I couldn't keep trying to get in because it will disable her phone for a minute or so with many failed attempts. Yeah, he is right. I have an iPhone, and if you mess up too many times, it will disable it, unless you set up Face ID. The next night, I called my buddy and asked a favor. I asked him, would he help me with something? He was like, "What is it?" I told him, "Remember when we had the conversation about you telling me about seeing my wife's car?" He was like, "Yeah. Well, she told me she was going to be somewhere else, but she wasn't. His response was, "Oh man, what is going on?" "Well, I need your help to find out." So, our plan was stake out my wife's job a few nights, see where she goes when she gets off, but I couldn't use my car. She would recognize it. My buddy has an old beat up Ford van that he uses sometimes when he does these contract jobs at night. We staked out my wife's job for 2 nights. She went straight home those nights. On the 3rd night, when she left work, she walked out with her phone to her ear. It was about 7:21 when she walked out. She got in her car and drove through the drive-thru of Burger King. When she did this, my buddy looked at me and said, "Does she normally bring food home after work?" I said no. We continued to follow her to what seemed like a brand new subdivision. We were careful so she wouldn't spot us. She's never seen his van, but we still wanted to be careful. Well, she pulls into this driveway, and we notice a guy in the garage working on a car. My wife gets out of her car and gives this guy the food, and he plants a kiss on her and grabs her ass. Guys, this woman has given off 3 clues that something may be going on with her. The cologne, staying at her friend's for 4 hours supposedly trying on hand-me-downs, and her husband not being able to get into her phone. I bolted out of the van. My friend tried to grab me. I yelled, "You bitch, really?" Now, I am 6'4", and my buddy is 6'1". This guy is shorter than both of us. They both look back at us. The guy throws his hands up. I yell at my wife again and ask her, "What the fuck is she doing?" The guy interrupts and says, "Hey man, she said she was going through a divorce. I am sorry." And when he said that, I noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. I looked at the guy and said, "You are right. She is going through a divorce." At this point, my buddy had the wherewithal to take photos. We both walked back to his van and left. As soon as I got home, I packed a bag and left to go stay with my buddy. I think that was a wise move. Some people can stay under the same roof even if they know they've been cheated on, but some people can't because their emotions might get them in trouble. The next day, I called a divorce attorney to see what my options were. Well, we live in Florida, which is a no-fault divorce state. The attorney basically told me, since we have been married this long, I wasn't getting out of this without sharing something with her. Even the next day, I was still very angry at her. My wife tried to call and text me a few times, but I didn't respond to her. The next day, I went home to get more clothes. To my surprise, my wife was home. When I walked in, she tried to hug me. I told her to get away from me before I knocked her out. Remember, guys, violence isn't the answer. Try to learn to control your emotions. After leaving the house, I went straight to the attorney's office and filed for divorce. I never went back to the house for anything. I made sure that day when I went back, I took everything I needed until our divorce was final. I wasn't going to tell my son yet until he came home from college, but he will probably find out eventually. About a month later, my wife was served with divorce papers at her job, and we had the divorce hearing another month after that. We split everything down the middle. When the house sells, she will get half. I had to pay alimony for 18 months in the amount of $600, and that was that. I made quite a bit more money than she did, but couldn't get out of paying alimony. I hate these no-fault divorce states. They can be brutal. That's why most men today are not getting married because of shit like this. $600 a month is a good chunk of change. The wife cheats and still gets paid? They need to change these laws. After our house was sold, my wife got an additional $75,000 from the sale of the house. I stayed with my buddy until I was able to find myself an apartment. 6 months after the divorce, I started therapy. I have so much anger inside me. I just couldn't believe the way she betrayed me. When my son planned a visit, I told him what happened. He was devastated and vowed to cut his mother out of his life. I don't condone that, but I also told him the decision was entirely up to him. But I am doing okay. I have blocked her on all social media, and I told all my friends and family why we divorced. Well, I think he handled it well, kept his emotions in check to stay out of trouble. Guys, a few days back, I posted a video where I told men not to let a woman's actions mess up their job. Well, someone responded saying I need to cool it with the manly man stuff. No, hell no. I'm not backing down from what I said. I've been cheated on, so I know. So I get where you guys are coming from. But I draw the line at letting a woman wreck your career because she couldn't stay faithful. If you're struggling mentally, seek therapy. But don't let a cheating woman take up that much space in your head. Taking time off work should be reserved for serious matters like losing a parent, losing a child, or a sibling, not because of some woman who can't keep her legs closed. Fuck that. You need to learn to prioritize your mental battles, and the cheating woman isn't a priority. Get rid of her. Now your mind is right. Until next time.